Okay, so let's talk about the special type of bonding that occurs between metal atoms. So first off, it's called metallic bonding. And this happens when metal atoms are attracted to each other. It can be a single type of metal, or it could be several metals mixed together, and that's called an alloy. Okay, so whether we have a mixture of metals or we have just a single metal, this type of bonding is going to occur between metal atoms. So remember that metals have those d and f orbitals, right? They are surrounded by lots and lots of electrons. And remember that they are on the side of the periodic table that does not have very much electronegativity. Metals tend to form positive ions. They're able to give up their electrons very, very easily because they don't have very many protons in the nucleus. They do not have a strong attractive force. So that lack of attractive force allows metal atoms to kind of float in a sea of electrons. What happens is the valence electrons of metal atoms do what we call delocalize. Okay, they delocalize from the atom. They just sort of move around the positively charged nuclei of the metal atom. So they're moving around all over the place. And the positive metal atoms just kind of float around in this sea of electrons. Okay, and because we have that mobility, we have electrons moving from place to place. We have negatives and we have positives. We have moving parts. Because all of that is occurring, it gives metals very special physical properties. Okay, so the first one is malleability. And that means that metals can be hammered into sheets without separating. And again, that's because the electrons and those positive cations of the metal atoms are able to move around. Okay, they're not brittle. Since everything can move, we have mobile electrons. The material itself can move without breaking. We also have ductility, which I always think about gum when I think about ductility. If you take a piece of gum and you kind of stretch it out, that's kind of like what happens when things are ductile, right? The metal is pulled into a thin wire and it's able to move into that shape because the electrons can move easily, okay? Metals are good conductors of both heat and electricity. Because energy is able to move through that sea of electrons easily. Through other substances without mobile electrons like metals have, energy is not able to move. But since we have that separation of positives and negatives, both heat and electricity, forms of energy, can move through the electrons. And that makes them very good conductors. This is why they're used for pots and pans and other parts that need to be heated and cooled very quickly.